we oh, we weren't recording before. Well, welcome. If you're just joining the recording, you just missed the preamble, but we were just talking about Argo and kind of the trajectory of the project, how it's growing faster than any other open source project out there aimed at Argo CD is probably the fastest growing GitOps tool out there. And Argo Workflows is also the fastest growing sort of CI tool out there, open source. So one of the things that happened about 6 months ago is we ran this user survey of Argo users, and we asked them to give their NPS. Basically, we did an NPS survey. So for people that aren't familiar with a Net Promoter Score or an NPS, basically what we do is we ask people, how likely are you to recommend this tool to a friend? And anybody that answers 8, 9, and 10 counts as a positive point. Anybody that answers 6 and below counts as a negative, and 7, I think, is neutral. It counts as nothing. And when you do this for companies, if you look at a company like Comcast, I think their Net Promoter Score is like -35. More people are detractors, right? If you look at a company like Apple, I think that their score is like positive, like 40. So it's really, really good. We ran it for Argo, and it was like, and Argo Workflows and Argo CD, and it was like 74 and 77, something like that, which is really, really high. I mean, that's like cult level, like you can start a religion off of that NPS score, kind of levels. So like from where you came from, Alex, starting this, trying to figure out a commercial application, open sourcing it, and now seeing not only meteoric growth, and of course we announced ArgoCon, and the first conference is happening this year. This is really exciting. And at Kubecon, there are probably, a dozen, maybe 24 different talks that feature Argo. What do you kind of attribute that to? Like, what do you look back at and say, oh, why has this been so popular, so successful? Is it just about the UI? Is it just about the community? What is it?
I do believe that a lot of credit goes to Kubernetes itself. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the talk, that it was kind of a hard lesson for us, that we tried to abstract away Kubernetes. So first, it's just difficult to catch up with the project, with Kubernetes, because it keeps evolving, keep changing. At the same time, it provides so many benefits. So it's just stupid not to use it. And I believe that Argo is so popular thanks to Kubernetes, because we made a decision to focus on Kubernetes only and not try to make Argo work, on Kubernetes and on Mesosphere, for example. Our focus is only Kubernetes, and that gives us opportunity to use all the features that Kubernetes provides. So we can just assume that you have access to Kubernetes scheduler, you have access to etcd, and that makes it possible to keep project lightweight, because Kubernetes itself came with so much infrastructure. And I believe this is one reason why the project is doing so well. And another reason is that we're kind of repeating. So we spent, the team behind Argo spent 2-3 years trying to build a product that effectively failed. But then we get a chance to basically rebuild it from scratch and fix all the mistakes we made. And it was kind of easier than if you're just starting from scratch. Yeah, and then, so I mentioned the workflow. And so workflow was built on top of like 2 years of experience. And the next project was Argo CD, which again, it was not just created from scratch. We attempted to build a continuous deployment solution as part of V1. And we made some mistakes. We learned those mistakes, and then when Intuit acquired company Applatix, Intuit asked us to build a continuous deployment tool. And so again, it was kind of, we were repeating the same journey, knowing all the mistakes we made in the past.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, usually, you don't get a chance to kind of reset and redo. And what do you think it was that Intuit saw in the project that made them say, hey, we think like the V2 of this could be amazing, so we should acquire it and we want to use it internally? I mean, were they already using it internally when they decided to make the acquisition?
No, actually, no. Intuit was looking for expertise to onboard on Kubernetes. And I think they mostly were interested in Kubernetes expertise, not Argo. So the Argo was a good proof enough for them to, realized that the team behind Argo has Kubernetes knowledge. And so the goal was to introduce Kubernetes into it. And when we joined, we kind of split into two groups. One group was responsible to run Kubernetes and provide it as a service reliably to the whole company. And second group, which I was part of, we were responsible for developer experience. Like we were tasked to figure out how is it going to look like, how developers are going to use Kubernetes at Intuit. Are they going to run kubectl commands, or are they going to, I don't know, use something else? And then when we spoke with the very few first teams that were trying Kubernetes, we realized that basically developers are not going to be experts by the time we build the Kubernetes platform. We knew that they will have some knowledge, but it will be very kind of generic understanding of Kubernetes, and that influences a lot of Argo CD requirements. So we realized that we want to provide a tool that is available to end users as a service, and it must have web user interface because it's the simplest possible way of consuming an application. And also we learned about GitOps. So the first version of CD tool of Argo V1 was not GitOps based. And at this point of time, there were a lot of noise made by Viv, the company that coined GitOps term. And we really liked that idea. Basically, GitOps is not something extremely complex, but I think we can talk about it more going forward. In combination with Kubernetes, it's super powerful. And so we recognized that value, and we decided to build GitOps based operator that is available, that delivers GitOps function as a service to a lot of engineers.
Yeah, so I actually do want to go deeper into GitOps. And before we do, there is a question from Patrick. And again, for any of our live attendees, feel free to ask questions. We'll read your chat as we go along. He says, I'm an OpenStack and Kubernetes engineer and newbie to Argo CD. Can you help point me to some good resources which I can refer to understand the working of Argo CD and any hands-on labs I can try on top of Kubernetes/OpenShift? You want to start that?
Yes. I think I would recommend to just use Argo CD getting started guide in the official documentation. You can find it if you just Google, I guess, Argo CD, and most likely it would be the top link. And the reason is Argo CD is not kind of opinionated about the Kubernetes distribution that you're using. You can basically install it on Minikube, you can install it on K3D, K3S cluster, or OpenShift. And I guess OpenShift is still relevant because if I'm not mistaken, I know that OpenShift has the first class support of Argo CD. Mm-hmm. So if you're already an owner of OpenShift cluster, it might be easier to provision Argo CD using OpenShift UI. But here I won't be able to help you much about it. I don't know much about OpenShift, unfortunately. But I do know that Red Hat works and build an integration with Argo CD.
Yeah, I kind of view it almost like Linux versus Unix. Mm-hmm. It's like lots of times you sit down and a lot of the same commands are going to work, but there are some fundamental differeces under the hood. But I would add too, as a plug, there's on Katacoda actually a workshop available for doing Argo CD that'll run you through setting it up. You can do it all in the browser, which is a great experience. And also there is a new certification program that CodeFresh just launched. We just announced it. It's going to be we're accepting registrations. I think it's going to come out in the next 2 months here. So you can register for that, and Sarah can post that into the chat. The certification program, it's a GitOps certification using Argo CD as the primary instrument. So really excited to be offering that, and we've got a couple of interesting contributors on that. The other thing that's being asked by Robert, and then we're going to get into GitOps here, is are there any sessions on Argo at Kubecon we should look to attend? And I think, Alex, you mentioned you might actually have a link to a couple right off the bat.
I do. Yes, let me post a list of links into the chat.
And I think there's probably a dozen. There's
Yes.
quite a few. Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of apologize in advance if I missed some of the
Oh,
talks,
yeah.
but I basically I put, oh sorry, let me put
No,
it
I
in.
got it. I got it. I got it. You're good.
Yeah, thank you. So basically these are talks from kind of from presenters who we know personally, who is active in the community. There might be more from the people who we don't know, who use Argo, who we don't know, who I don't know personally. Yeah, but those are the talks that Argo maintainers and contributors will be presenting during Kubecon.
Perfect.
So, and we will talk about projects, and I think what's exciting about ecosystem, which is growing around Argo right now.
Yeah. So with that, let's transition into GitOps here for a moment, and we'll come back probably to Argo Workflows and Argo Events, and I do want to get into Argo Rollouts as well, which Argo Rollouts especially fits into GitOps, probably more so than some of the other projects. But there's been this effort to kind of standardize GitOps going on over the last year that was launched with Weaveworks, CodeFresh, Red Hat, Google Cloud. No, I'm like mixing up all the people. Azure was there, GitHub was there. Basically, the goal is to come up with kind of a standardization in the approach to GitOps. And there have been some efforts to sort of standardize some of the underlying tool. I know that you've done a lot of work to create universal tooling in the GitOps toolkit that's available as part of the Argo project. But what's your kind of general take on GitOps and this effort to standardize it in general?
Yeah, I feel like maybe I can start from GitOps in general. Like I do like the idea, and I'm very happy that the term exists. One thing, it's kind of, especially in the beginning, I was a bit skeptical about this idea because GitOps sounds kind of, if you try to just define it in a single term, it's basically have some automated process that uses some version control system as a source of truth. It's nothing new. Like I would argue that we've been doing it for like years. Like 10 years ago, we had, I don't know, maybe
Subversion or something. Yeah.
Some subversion, yes, and a bunch of bash scripts. And
Perforce.
Kind of GitOps. But I think what really changed, it was Kubernetes. Kubernetes is so, GitOps friendly. Basically, it has all the tooling built in already. It has kubectl, which has a couple commands, kubectl diff, kubectl apply. And for those who don't know, these two commands can take a bunch of files stored locally, compare it with the cluster and tell you the difference, or fix that difference for you. So what's left, right? It's basically, this is it. Like this is all the tools you have to build this automation. And you can maybe create a cron job that run kubectl diff, kubectl apply, and your GitOps is kind of done. And I think that was the change that happened. Basically, GitOps idea existed for a long time, but Kubernetes made it practical. Now it's really easy to implement. And this is why, Argo CD was created. It's just a step forward. Now we have the solid foundation. And now, we have opportunity to focus on user experience. And so I feel like GitOps made us thinking. Everyone, it helped us to evangelize this idea. Instead of a single sentence, we have a single word now, and everyone understands what we're talking about. And with the Kubernetes, we have opportunity to focus on, polishing user experience and figuring out these, nitty-gritty details about how exactly you want to use kubectl diff, kubectl apply, pretty much.
Yeah, I kind of I think it's a lot like the analogy I always use is Ford didn't invent the car. There were lots of other people that built cars before Ford did. But what Ford did is he made cars super accessible. And so I think GitOps and Argo CD both especially kind of fit into that world where it's like, yeah, people were using version control for all their production systems, 10 years ago. They were probably brilliant. They were probably alone. They were probably super specialized and didn't have, it was very difficult to achieve because there was so much work you had to do to make it occur. It's like, can you do object-oriented programming in Google Sheets? Yeah, you can. Like, it's kind of a nightmare, but you could technically do it. And same thing with managing Kubernetes resources. There was actually a talk last year where someone had built essentially a software agent that sat in a Google Sheet, monitored production and monitored the configuration set in Google Sheet. And then when they made a change, it could actually apply that and deploy it. Could that technically be GitOps friendly? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's under version control, it's immutable. You've got a software agent monitoring things. So all the elements are there. So who's to say you can't do it? But is it accessible? Is it easy? Maybe not. So Argo CD and this effort to kind of standardize definitions and approaches to GitOps, I think, is all about just accessibility and making it so that people can implement it. And I'd be interested to hear.
I think I was referring to the same idea, but I was using user experience as a term. So I felt like because we didn't have to invent basics of GitOps, that allowed us to focus on user experience. And here you have a bunch of choices because there are different kind of users. And so Argo CD, naturally, our focus audience were developers, and developers who are not necessarily Kubernetes experts. They don't have Kubernetes admin access, and they don't really need it. They just want to deploy an applications. And that's what probably made Argo CD very popular. And we had access to a lot of those users. I'm referring to Intuit developers. So we had like around 3,500 developers who are about to use Kubernetes, and they throw a lot of requirements into us, and that helped to shape, the form of Argo CD. So we focused on only right features that are relevant to application developers.
Yeah, and there's some cool efforts going on right now to extend beyond just Kubernetes. So maybe we can get into that in a second when we get into the roadmap discussion. But some of the things that you brought up about developers having access, this dovetails with a question from Paul in the chat, who asks, do you allow developers full access to the UI to manage Kubernetes resources? How does Argo CD fit into cluster access management policy?
Yeah, so I think this Argo CD was created first focused on application developer use cases. So that's why it has its own role-based access control built on top of Kubernetes. And the reason is to simplify operators' life. Operators are usually a platform team that run a bunch of Kubernetes clusters, and it's kind of painful to configure. Kubernetes has its own role-based access control, but it's limited to a single cluster. If you have a lot of clusters, you kind of, like, one way or another, you must have something else on top of it. And so Argo kind of brings, it has its own role-based access control, which is way less powerful than Kubernetes, but it's just good enough to solve application developer use cases, and it connects it with the SSO system. Basically, you can bring your own SSO provider, pick the roles that represents developer groups, and connect it to rules defined in Argo CD. So I think that kind of answers the first, hopefully answers the first question about access. And basically, it's up to the user. Like, some companies give developers full access through Argo CD, and they can do whatever they want. At Intuit in particular, we do not give full access to everyone everywhere, but developers have full access to the namespace that they manage using Argo CD. So they can use kubectl or Argo CD to manage deployments, delete deployments through the UI. And yeah, so we kind of trust our users, but we limit amount of damage they can make to that namespace that they have access to.
Yeah, and I think my approach, is usually to limit the kubectl a little bit more, while allowing the flow through Argo CD, because then it's auditable and you don't have like, somebody fat fingering a change or something on terminal, which has been a cause of downtime in the past. That's probably my general approach to it. But this brings up best practices, and another good question on this topic from Steve Christensen, who says, a great thing about Argo CD is that it's a very general framework for doing GitOps, but it doesn't force strong opinions on how a team should manage their manifest secrets or do promotions through different clusters or environments. That's a huge stumbling block after the initial, oh, wow, this is cool. What efforts, projects are you aware of that layer a more opinionated or best practice on top of Argo CD? And I have a locked and loaded answer, but I want to hear what you say first.
I mean, yeah, I think one answer is yes. There is an awesome project called Argo CD Autopilot that was started by Codefresh, and I really like that project. So the idea behind that project is that you're right. There are a ton of different ways you can do GitOps using Argo CD, and I think the reason why we didn't have good, like best practices in the beginning is because we had no idea. Like we were building a tool that was trying to make GitOps accessible and easy to do. And the next step is to figure out, observe how users use it and try to codify it in a tool. And so that's what Argo CD Autopilot is trying to do. It is an opinionated CLI that implements kind of production-ready way to manage Kubernetes clusters using Argo CD. And yeah, so this is one source of knowledge that can help.
Yeah, and I am very biased about Argo CD Autopilot. I've done quite a few videos about it and given a number of talks. But I totally, this is actually one of the things that I think is help part of Argo CD's success is that it is very flexible. You can come in and you can kind of set up your flows the way you want to. And so I think that's really good as an option because you want to, sometimes there are situations where you want to go off the beaten path, you want to do something different. But Argo CD Autopilot as a CLI tool will bootstrap your instance of Argo, and it will write all of the config for that Argo instance into Git, which a lot of people, I run into people all the time who just install Argo CD using like Helm or something, and they don't throw it in version control. And once they've got it installed, everything is done doing GitOps, but they don't actually do the installation of Argo CD itself doing GitOps. And that's like, okay, well, like your whole system should be here, right? So Argo CD Autopilot doing that is really nice. And then setting up the directory structure and giving you a way to set multiple environments and promote a change between environments. It's very straightforward. Right now, it's based on customize, which I actually quite like because you can create overlays. And I think there is a roadmap. In the roadmap, there is planned to add support for Helm and some other tools that people like to use. But yeah, that's the one that I'm most familiar with. I've spent the most time with, and really do just totally love. It's very, very easy to use.
And there are some materials available about these best practices. One of it is, there is selfless promotion. Is we actually worked on a book called Kubernetes and GitOps, and it was pretty much written by Intuit employees who worked on Argo CD and was working on introducing Kubernetes, and it kind of describes the way how Intuit did approached Kubernetes, and it talks about environments, promotions. So it's not, I would not call it a guideline to do it, but it's basically, it gives a good idea about how you can achieve it.
Yeah, and actually, Sarah, I don't know if you knew this, Alex, but we actually have a special edition of your book available to all of our viewers and listeners. So Sarah, maybe you want to throw that in the chat. People can go and download the special edition with a forward by me of Alex's book, which I think I don't know if we'll have physical, I don't think we'll have physical copies. There will be some physical copies at Kubecon, because I think we mentioned that there'd be a chance for people to get some signings and stuff, but worth checking out if people get the chance. Definitely a very good read and very well done. And, the expertise of Alex is on full display there.
Thank you.
So this goes into, some of the flexibility, opinionated aspect of this. And there was a lot of work done in Argo CD to make it universal. And I actually heard some discussion, and maybe this is a good point to go into the roadmap discussion, about using Argo to manage non-Kubernetes resources. Is that something you'd be open to talking about?
Yeah, we can talk about, so I feel like there is okay, I need to step back and kind of talk about how we approach this being opinionated versus non-opinionated.
Sure.
I think we agreed that each project is going to be opinionated. Not opinionated, sorry, is going to be focused on a single use case. And so workflow unlikely ever going to do CD. It's going to be a tool to orchestrate a set of container creation in a Kubernetes, and CD's focus is GitOps for Kubernetes. That's it. It's like, unlikely we will ever expand Argo CD into non-Kubernetes. But at the same time, we're trying to leverage extensibility which comes with Kubernetes. And basically, Argo CD, each Argo CD project has an API, which is Kubernetes custom resource. If you don't know, there is a way to extend Kubernetes and define your own resource type. And basically, you can explain to Kubernetes that you have applications or you have workflows. And then users can interact with that API through Kubernetes. And not only users, someone else can create more applications that use workflows API to manage workflows, or Argo CD application CRD to manage Argo CD. And basically, so we are hoping to achieve these opinionated use cases by building side projects that implement those opinionated use cases. And we created a separate GitHub org called Argo Labs. So if you navigate to GitHub as github.com/argo-labs, you will see a bunch of projects there, including Argo CD Autopilot. And yeah, so I think I'm lost. Where did I start? Yeah, basically opinionated versus non-opinionated. So Argo CD is trying to be generic, but it leaves the room open to implement opinionated use cases through this extensibility, that comes with Kubernetes. Because it's Kubernetes native, we have this, just free feature extensibility, and we're building a bunch of things that help people to use Argo CD in an opinionated way. So I saw cluster management use case that was mentioned. And so Argo CD do not have abstraction that represents clusters. It only has an abstraction called application, which is just a bunch of Kubernetes resources. But if you manage clusters, it kind of possesses a problem. Typically, you want to install, not typically, one of the use cases, we refer to it as cluster add-on. So basically, you want to install the same set of Kubernetes resources into a lot of clusters. And in Argo CD world, you would have to create hundreds of applications, which is kind of a pain. And to address it, we created a project called Argo CD Application Set, which is a producer of Argo CD applications. And it implements these use cases that you have in, when you do cluster management. So basically, you can configure application set to create an identical application for each and every cluster registered in Argo CD instance. And it will, this way you kind of get automated add-ons that you automatically install in every cluster that Argo CD manages.
Yeah, that's it's super cool. And for a project like this, I hear sometimes people compare Argo to something like Prometheus. It's a CNCF project. It's currently, going through graduation. It was in the latest CNCF survey. It was in the adopt segment, which is the highest, most sought after segment. But this, it's actually in some ways larger, because I'm not aware of other projects that have this whole labs concept where people are coming and kind of building an ecosystem around Argo. And to see not only that, but Alex Collins just started working on this data pipelines project in Argo Labs, which is really interesting for people that want to do data pipelines. These are all kind of like extending beyond where the original Argo project started. And Argo also isn't just a single tool, because it's Argo Workflows, it's Argo Events, it's Argo CD, it's Argo Rollouts. So to kind of go beyond to the next extension about managing resources that aren't Kubernetes, that's something that is on the roadmap.
I totally ignored that.
No, that's okay. I'm bringing you back to it.
So yes, right now there is a project called Argo Cloud Ops. And the focus of that project is to manage, it's kind of a GitOps for cloud without Kubernetes. And unfortunately, I won't be able to talk much about it because I am not personally actively involved. But to be honest, this project looks like a it's different from other labs projects because I think it's an experiment that eventually might make it into Argo Project. Of course, it will have to go through the process, but in my mind, it's like a fifth project. It's not an addition to one of the existing projects. It's a separate project that solves a different use case with a different focus, and it doesn't complement existing Argo family projects. Yeah, and I guess maybe you know more about it than.
Like, no, it's okay. I'm really interested to see where it goes, and you know, I could use a tool like Crossplane, for example, which is basically it's an open source tool that implements like AWS resources as CRDs within Kubernetes. So you can like provision AWS resources through this interface. I could use that with Argo CD today, and I would, you know, be done, right? Like I would be a lot of the way there. So it'll be interesting to see how this project develops to add an additional resources under management, and how that will kind of interface with other tools. But you know, speaking of integration, there's this question from Andrew. He says, "What are your thoughts on Rancher and Argo integration?" And I'm not actually familiar with any specific integration. I have a K3s cluster that I use Argo CD on to manage everything. So I don't know if that's just what they're asking, or maybe you're aware of there's a specific integration.
Argo CD, you know, we're trying to Argo CD is extensible, and you kind of, in theory, you can configure health checks, for example, for Rancher resources. But since we are partnering with Red Hat, sorry, not Red Hat, since
Rancher.
Yes, I was talking about something else. Yeah, I was talking about OpenShift, but I know that we do have some built-in health checks, basically health checks that are written in Go and just exist in Argo CD that support probably some Rancher resources. Okay, yeah, I started my answer thinking about OpenShift. And yet I was about to say that Argo has built-in health checks and built-in support for OpenShift resources, not Rancher. Yes, and I believe that there is nothing specific to Rancher in Argo CD code. And that might be, if Rancher comes with some Rancher-specific CRDs, the best way to integrate it with Argo CD is to use Argo CD framework that allows you to configure custom health checks and custom resource actions. Probably there is nothing in the project itself.
Okay, that's what I thought. On my K3s cluster, there's this thing that they have called like system upgrade plan, which basically allows you to version what instance, version your Rancher instance. So you can be like, oh, I want K3s to be running, 2004, whatever or 20. I think we're on like 21 now for Kubernetes. But basically, I can change the version of Kubernetes, and Rancher will go and implement that and upgrade all my nodes and stuff. I manage that using Argo CD. So like I created I create that as an application within Argo CD. And then when I update it and stuff, it works just fine. So Edgar, you're asking if you can distribute the ebook to your teammates, send them the link, let them download it. Absolutely. This is actually offered free by CodeFresh to get people to consume the book. And so forward it on, and we'd be thrilled to get more people to download it. So as we're coming up, on our last, 10, 15 minutes here, again, people feel free to ask questions. We've got coming up, we're nearing the end of the year and we have Argo Contributor Summit coming up with some of the maintainers talking about roadmap and stuff. What are the things in the roadmap that you're the most excited about?
So there was a question before about cluster management, and I kind of,
sure.
It kind of goes in line with the roadmap. So we, as I mentioned, Argo CD was started with application developer use cases in mind, and as it was adoption was growing, and basically we hear from people that there are more and more users who wants to use Argo CD to manage clusters, and we recently released the first version of feature called Argo CD Core. It used to be Argo CD Headless, and no one liked that name. But basically, Argo CD was criticized for being, too enterprisey. Basically, if you have a lot of users, then it totally makes sense to have SSO and have custom role-based access control. But if you're a cluster operator and you have full cluster access and you have one cluster, it's totally overkill. You don't need any of this. And what we did, we created a different kind of distribution of Argo CD. So it's the same code, but it has no enterprise components. And it was released in the most recent version. It's available in version 2.1. And we are now polishing and enhancing that feature and mostly working on documentation and blogs, to explain to people how to use it. So, and that comes as part of 2.2. And although that feature is already available, I wanted to basically advertise it here. And this is something that we are working on actively. We're trying to make Argo CD friendly for cluster admins. And that's one of the use cases that we are internally using at Intuit. We start using Argo CD to manage clusters. And we now, kind of chasing users who wants to do the same and learn from them, see what issues they're seeing, and we'll try to solve them. This is one of the features. And I'm not sure if you want to talk about that. Yeah. I'm happy to jump to another one, which is
that's a cool one. But I think what are some of the other things you're excited about on the roadmap?
Yes, so another one is kind of completely opposite. So as I mentioned at Intuit, we use Argo CD as a tool for developers to use and manage Kubernetes, and it's kind of basically a lot of them use it as a Kubernetes dashboard. So Argo CD has cool features that can help you visualize your application. You can see what it consists of. At the same time, we have more UIs in other Argo projects. For example, Argo Workflows has its own way to visualize workflow execution. Basically, you can see workflow nodes, and you can see it live. Like the progress of a workflow. Argo Rollout, we didn't talk about the project at all, but basically, it's a progressive delivery tool for Kubernetes, and it has its own UI. And so there was kind of, basically too many UIs and exists right now. And there are more UIs for other Kubernetes resources. So basically in 2.2 version, we are trying to bring all of these UIs into Argo CD. And we call it Argo CD extensions. So basically it's a way to package a resource state visualization and make it available in Argo CD. And during that Kubecon, we're going to present a rollouts extension for Argo CD. So, and yeah, hopefully I gave it, basically just to summarize, users will be able to find rollout resource in Argo CD user interface, click on it, and suddenly see a dashboard that represents a single rollout, which has, kind of rich visualization of rollout state.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I'm pretty excited about. And I know in the last maintainers meeting, we some CodeFresh designers were working on some upgrades to the UI to kind of streamline and unify. Oopsie. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. What about on the? We didn't talk about Argo rollouts almost at all. And I think we should, because Argo Rollouts is, to me, actually one of the really cool parts of the project. And I actually worked, I built like a canary and blue-green tool for Kubernetes years ago that was basically a bunch of bash scripts packaged into a Docker image. It was a whole mess, and there's a reason that I don't spend most of my time engineering these days anyway. But I was especially interested in Argo rollouts because I felt like it was finally making progressive delivery accessible. Is that your view? Do you feel like we've gotten there, or do you feel like there's still like some big hurdles that will keep people from kind of mass adopting?
I feel like it's getting, that project exists for a long time, but I believe that it was kind of it was like in the shade of Argo CD because people were just not ready. Like a lot of companies were just starting using Kubernetes. They just didn't get to to that problem of progressive delivery. And now it's changing because, Kubernetes is considered to be stable, I guess. It's adopted by so many companies. And the next natural step is to use, progressive delivery. And I feel like going forward, we won't see a lot of new features in rollout. Instead, we will see a lot of polishing and kind of, improving stability. And actually, I mean, it's still kind of like 1.2 release, upcoming 1.2 release will prove me wrong. It will have a lot of new features, but maybe 1.3 release will have a lot of bug fixes and stability enhancements. And I can mention few exciting features of next rollout release. So one of those is going to be basically a big improvement to Canary deployment. So right now, Argo Rollout it has integration with Service Mesh, and it can do Canary using Service Mesh or any ingress controller to manage traffic split. And this way you get a granular traffic split. But the downside of current approach is that it unnecessarily scale up too many Canary pods. And basically you might end up even running double capacity, which you don't need. And it was basically to support kind of true Canary, where you scale up and scale down production pods and they introduce
progressively,
progressively. At the same time, you have this kind of controversial requirement to do traffic management using ingress. It was difficult to do, but I think it's finally done. And in 1.2 release, it will be available as an option. This
is something I actually appreciate too about Argo rollouts. I was pretty hot on service meshes when they started, and I've kind of cooled a bit. I still see their value, but if all you wanted to do was achieve a Canary release, to have to install a whole service mesh, and it felt really, really heavy. And of course, Argo Rollouts does support service meshes, but it also supports just a straight up Nginx ingress. And so you can just, if you're just using an Nginx ingress, you can just use that. Or it supports Amazon ALBs. So if you're just using an application load balancer, you can just use that, and you don't have to install a service mesh to get Canary, to get blue green. And then the other component of it, which is it's a GitOps approach, right? I can create a declarative kind of policy for how my rollouts should occur. This is something that's actually fairly new as well, and something that people in the past have done maybe with a GUI or kind of scripted, procedural deployments. But now you can kind of set your declarative definition of how the rollout should occur, which is really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was the main motivation of, basically we decided to create rollout. It will take too much time to talk about the whole story of rollout, but yeah, rollout is basically was a replacement of a bunch of Jenkins scripts, and it made it, much easier and reliable to build this complex, progressive delivery plan.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it grows. Now that it is kind of in that stable state, it's matured quite a bit. I actually think over the next year, I would expect rollouts to grow quite a bit, because for people that are doing Kubernetes at scale, they're doing applications at scale, to be able to do a Canary release, it's really valuable. And you can help avoid a lot of downtime. You just shrink the impact of any regressions that you might be rolling out. It's super important. So
one of the usability features that we're introducing in next release of rollout, it's supposed to be, I think it's a release candidate is available already. It's rich notification support. So it's kind of historically Argo CD we were avoiding the topic because we wanted to focus on one use case, and notifications, it's a whole different, area. Basically, there are too many things you have to think about. Notifications means so many different things for different people. Someone think notification is a Slack, someone else prefer email, someone else does Google Chat. And basically we spent, I think, a year at least trying to get something for Argo CD. But what we eventually ended up having is called a notification engine, which brings unified notification experience to all Argo projects, including rollout. So in the next version of rollout, you can integrate it with at least a dozen of different notification services, including email, Slack, Telegram. It's getting Google Chat support, NetGenie, and it's, and basically the good thing is that we have that the functionality is shared across Argo projects, and it's still in active development. It's been in production for at least 6 months already. But what I mean by active development is that we keep getting contributions and integrations with different notification services. Yeah, and it will of course make rollout more usable. Like you can get, Slack notifications about rollout progression. Basically, you will get notified that your canary step reached, your canary execution reached 50%, and something else happened.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the time. I want to give you the last word, and I want to take one more question. Before I do want to mention again, ArgoCon is coming up. Go and register. It's free to join virtually. So go join ArgoCon. We can post that link in the chat again. We've got this GitOps book that Alex actually wrote, and a special CodeFresh edition available for anybody that we can post again in the chat. We've got the GitOps certification with Argo CD that people can check out, and that's also a free thing that people can go get a certification for GitOps using Argo CD. That's really exciting. So go and grab that link and jump into it. And of course, if you are doing Argo at scale, Argo CD at scale, CodeFresh actually built this thing called CodeFresh GitOps, which allows you to manage and run tons of Argo instances, lots of clusters, whether they're on-prem, if they're in the cloud, maybe you have a bunch of clusters at edge. This is a very popular use case for our customers in healthcare and financial services and things like that. So check that out, and we'll post a link to that. That's the CodeFresh GitOps that is, of course, built on Argo CD. And this goes to the amazing universality of Argo, which is CodeFresh. We're partnered with Intuit. We've got maintainers working. Intuit's got these maintainers working. Red Hat's got maintainers working. I saw that I know that GitLab has at least one maintainer in the mix. So there are quite a few companies all working together on this. So before we get to your last word here, Luke had the question, what do you feel about Devtron? Are there plans for Argo to consume some of the functionality Devtron have added to a forked version of Argo CD?
To be honest, I learned about Devtron very recently, and I was really excited that there is a whole big project that leverages Argo CD. So, to be honest, I do not know, how to answer that particular question, because I don't know what Devtron changed in Argo CD, but I think it will make me check what, and if there is a useful functionality that was contributed in Argo CD fork, I think it will be interesting to get it contributed back.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. It would be good. I mean, this is the whole community aspect, right? We're making some changes to Argo CD as we've been building our platform, and of course we've been contributing these things back, and that's something critical for you. We're in the last minute here. Critical takeaways. What do you want people to walk away with? Any final words?
Sorry, I didn't think about that, but yeah, I will take a minute I guess, yeah, I feel like maybe important takeaway is that Argo CD is not even, near to feature complete, neither any other of Argo projects. We have like a ton of ideas, and we're basically waiting for a chance to execute these ideas. So recently Argo got this exponential growth, and that affected our plans. We had to focus on stability a lot, and we're still fighting. People keep using Argo CD, and at least I can confidently speak about Argo CD in ways that we did not anticipate, and we have to make changes to accommodate these new valid use cases. And I think it will take us another several months to kind of stabilize, and as we get more maintainers, it's getting easier and easier, and project becoming more and more stable and scalable. And I'm pretty sure once we pass that stage, we will move back into building new features, and even at a more rapid pace.
Yeah. Hey, if you're interested in contributing to Argo, go check it out. It's open source. If you want to do it full time, CodeFresh is hiring. We actually have some engineers dedicated to the Argo project. I think Intuit may be hiring as well. So feel free to check them out. And thanks again, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate the questions. Excited to see this blow up. Feel free to share the recording with everybody. And so many links, so many resources here. Go jump on it. And for those of you that are attending KubeCon, I look forward to meeting you in person. Alex will be there. We'll both be there. We'll have some of a bunch of the other Argo maintainers are going to be there to hang out and sign books or whatever. Also, some of the swag. Alex, you have a really cool Argo shirt, and I'm actually looking forward to getting one. CodeFresh is going to be giving out a bunch of them. So I'll be getting a similar shirt, hopefully at KubeCon as well, and we can be twinners.
I'm pretty sure we'll have plushies as well. So I don't have it next to me, but it's a pretty nice one.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, thank you everyone again, and we'll see you on the internet. Bye.
Thank you.